Yeah, man. So we're back. We're back again for another episode. I am your lovely host, the Doggy Dog Dammy, the creator, and you're here in my space, in my environment. This is the Back of the Class show, and we're back again for another episode. Now, before we get into the things, before we get into the business, you know what you have to do: subscribe to the channel, subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a rating, and show some love to your boy, show some love to me. And follow our socials at Back OT Class Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And follow me personally at Demi_the creator on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And yeah, so you guys have been following me. Don't mind, today's gonna be a chilled episode because today's gonna be a therapy session for my men. So before you continue with this episode, get yourself a pint of ice cream because that might be needed. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on where I go with this episode, to be honest. Get yourself some ice cream and just get comfortable. Get into your space because it might get emotional. It might get vulnerable on this episode. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see if toxic masculinity catches up to me. We'll see if toxic masculinity catches up. We'll see if toxic masculinity catches up to me in this episode. But yeah, so like this month was Pride Month. Well, is still. There's a few days left. 2 days. 3. I don't know. This month is Pride Month. And it's also Men's Health Month. So I did like 2 episodes on Pride, like queerness. And I also did 1 episode so far on men's mental health. And today should be another episode on men's mental health. So, hence the ice cream because I plan on maybe getting emotional. And ice cream always helps me when I get emotional. So, don't mind me eating on my podcast, guys. I'm making myself feel at home because I am at home. So, for today, I was kind of like planning on like doing 2 sections. I was planning on first talking about like anger and emotional management for men, and also with permission from my friends, of course. I was also planning on like talking about relationships and breakups and shit like that because my friends are going through it. It's actually breakup season, and like yeah, my friends have been going through it. So yeah, there's been that as well. So I want to start with anger, and when I say anger, I mostly mean anger towards oneself. Because something I see a lot of men struggle with is finding peace with who they are, or even finding out who they are to begin with. Because we live in a society where being a man is considered to be inherently evil. And which is crazy because it then sparks the question, of course, at what point does a boy become a man? And at what point do you start to view that boy as evil and dangerous? But that's not the conversation for today. That's for another day. The conversation for today is for my men. It's for the niggas out there. So, mandem. I know we live in a society where if you slip up even once, you are considered to be inherently evil, and you're considered to be dangerous, and everyone treats you that way. Everyone treats you like a monster, and you have to work extra hard to be considered as a regular human being compared to other people, so like non-binary people and women as well. And I know that's very difficult, and it might get frustrating sometimes because obviously we all want to be treated as human beings. And sometimes I see a lot of men internalize these things. So for example, I have a couple friends, and it's mostly especially after breakups, which is also why I wanted to like talk about breakups. Mostly after like failed relationships. I don't know what that was. I apologize. So mostly after failed relationships, I know a lot of niggas who start to internalize all of the bad things about the relationship and they blame themselves exclusively. And this doesn't only happen in relationships, this happens in regular day as well, by what we consume via the internet and also what people tell us. So, for instance, we have this essentialist notion. We have this bioessentialist notion that men are inherently apathetic, dangerous, violent, and whatnot. And I see a lot of men, well, not just me, but like we see a lot of men who internalize this notion and see themselves as being inherently dangerous and work extra time, like they work actively extra time to try to not be that. And I'm not saying don't try to not be dangerous, if that makes sense. What I'm saying is you should do that without internalizing the idea that you're inherently dangerous. Because you are not. You being a man doesn't make you inherently dangerous. Being dangerous makes you dangerous. Just to put it out there. And so what a lot of these men do is because they internalize this idea, this notion of them being inherently dangerous, they start to overcompensate. And not only do they overcompensate, their compensation is often performative, and it's performative to the extent that even they don't know it's performative. And that's where, because then you avoid the genuine growth that you could have towards being non-dangerous, which is what I suppose their goal is. You deny yourself the chance to have that growth, and apart from that, you deny yourself the ability to be human, because you view yourself as being non-human. You view yourself as being a beast, like a danger to society. And so you keep beating yourself up and you think to yourself, oh, I'm doing a great job because I'm an ally. I'm doing a great job because I am deconstructing the patriarchy, but you are not deconstructing the patriarchy. Really, you're enforcing it, because if we know something about the patriarchy, it's that the patriarchy affects men as well. And one of these ways that it beats down on men is by telling men that being a man is inherently bad and you need to work to be the good man. Because I don't know where we recently got the idea that the patriarchy considers men to be good, because no, it doesn't. The patriarchy actually considers men to be evil. And through this guilt and shaming of men, you then find men who want to be the white knight, the savior complex. That comes from the patriarchy. So I see a lot of men falling into this trap, into this cycle, into this vicious cycle of self-hatred. Because that's what it really is. It isn't self-reflection. It isn't self-awareness. It's actually self-hatred and self-villainization. And a lot of men really need to work on getting to the root of why they are the way they are. Because no matter how good you do, no matter how better you become, if your motivation is the idea that you are inherently evil, then nothing you do would ever be good enough. And not even good enough for society to begin with, like good enough for you. You would never get to a point where you're like, yeah, I'm good now. Because you already see yourself as being inherently bad. And I keep saying inherently because that's like a key word. Because if you see yourself as being inherently evil, no matter what good action you perform, that good action will be tied to evil, because in your head, whatever you do is bad, whatever you do is negative. So whatever positive comes out of that negative is negative. And that's why a lot of men really hate themselves, low-key, high-key. A lot of men have beef with themselves because they see themselves as being bad. They see themselves as being hindrances to society. And that's the patriarchy. That's the patriarchy. But that's also by the way. Another thing is anger towards yourself. I find that a lot of men have a difficult time forgiving themselves for the actions of their past lives. Not past life, but younger selves. And honestly, I think we need to work, forgive yourself. You really need to find a way to forgive yourself. And that's really just guilt speaking. Because really, depending on how young you are, to be fair, depending on what you know. But like, we live in a society that is bad. We live in a patriarchal and white supremacist society. So it makes total sense that while you're growing up, you grow up learning patriarchal and white supremacist concepts. And it makes sense that you uphold those concepts while you're growing up, and it makes sense that you further the agenda of the patriarchy and white supremacy. But the thing is, now that you're aware, now that you've gained consciousness, now that you're older, are you actively working to unlearn these concepts that the patriarchy and white supremacy teaches you. Because if you are, then I think it's very safe to say that who you were in your younger years, who you were at the start of your life, isn't who you are now. You're growing as a person, you're getting better. And that really is the best you can do, is to continue getting better. And I'm gonna segue into the second part of this episode. There might even be a third, I don't know, we'll find out. Stay tuned. Like I said, a couple of my friends, and by a couple I really just mean one or two, to be honest, not that many. A couple of my friends have been going through it recently because it's breakup season and whatnot, so the streets are calling. And something that I see them doing is blame themselves for the end of the relationship. Now, this is not to say they're not at fault, and this is not to say that they are at fault, because in my opinion, everyone was at fault, It takes two to tango. It takes two to tango. But this is to say that I see them fall into this trap, fall into this hole of self-hatred, self-villainization. Because obviously they're my friends. And I had been with them throughout this relationship, throughout their relationships. I had been with them throughout, and I had seen heard at the very least of the shit that happened, and even saw the shit that happened sometimes. And I guess this is more or less a love letter to you guys. Also, thank you very much for letting me talk about this on the podcast. I know that's not really something that's easy to do, your story being out there. And yeah, I know your names are not attached to this, but your story's being out there. I know it's not an easy thing to do. But so thank you very much for letting me share this. So yes, I was saying, I know the shit that happened in their relationships, the good and the bad as well. And what I'm trying to say is right now they're very stuck on the bad, on the negatives that they did. They're oh yeah, I did this, that's why she doesn't love me. Yeah. But really and truly, the person they were with wasn't perfect, because obviously no one is perfect. And they weren't, my friends weren't perfect as well, and their partners, ex-partners, weren't perfect as well. But I see them put their partners on this pedestal, on this level that their partner really isn't on. If anything, they're on the same level, to be honest. And that helps them to self-villainize, to focus on the negative, and call it self-reflection. They're they're just trying to reflect on the relationship and find out what they can do better, how they can grow as a person, and whatnot. And I hear it. You should always want to grow as a person. But you should also be very much aware that if your self-reflection is always negative, then you are not reflecting at all. You are blaming. If your reflection never has a positive attached to it, it's not reflection. It's just you playing the blame game, but having yourself as a victim. So you're just self-victimizing. You're just antagonizing yourself. And sure, this could lead to growth. This could lead to some sort of, realization, awakening, if you will. But really and truly, what would happen is you become somewhat of a people pleaser, and that's not good for your mental health. Because if you're always at fault and it's never the other person's fault, then you're really not looking at the bigger picture. Because to begin with, the individual is a sum of society. So tell me why in a relationship the individual wouldn't be a sum of the relationship. So think about that, guys. I love you guys. You guys know how much I actually care about you, and to be honest, as much as I'm anti love and anti-relationship, this is just me being genuine with you. Because I saw you guys do the best that you could, if you're even listening to this video. But I saw you guys do the best that you could for your partners, for your gal and your mans. You guys did the best that you could. And sometimes your partners didn't live up to standard, and you guys still covered for that. And I don't think you could have done any better. than you did. Because to me, you guys did your best. And shit ended. And let's even be for real, the shit didn't end because of you. Like, shit just didn't work out. And, like, that's fine. That's also something that I actually don't understand. Is that sometimes shit doesn't work. And that's okay. Like, things are allowed to fail. Things are allowed to fail, especially relationships. They are very much allowed to fail. And I know that right now you're, like, stuck in this cycle of, like, this was your person, this was your soulmates, this was your whatnot. But I promise you they weren't. Because if they were, you would still be together. But they weren't. And that's okay. Because you're allowed to go through this. You're allowed to fail at relationships. Just because you weren't the boyfriend for this person doesn't mean that you're not fit enough to be someone else's boyfriend. And this is an issue that I see men in general struggle with. Men in general like to exist in extreme parts of the spectrum. And I don't fully understand why. Because that doesn't really make sense. Like, it's a spectrum for a reason. And you're allowed to exist anywhere from each end to the middle. So just because you failed in this one relationship doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Doesn't mean that you're a bad partner and whatnot. Like, you'll find someone else, and maybe you won't. And if you don't, you have me. We can be friends for life. Just because it didn't work with this person doesn't mean it will work with another person. Just take your time, focus on yourself, and grow as an individual. Grow as an individual, work on yourself, reflect on the good and the bad, emphasis on the good. Always make sure you think of the good. So that's very important. Otherwise, you would just be sweeping the problem under the rug and not actually taking care of what you have to take care of. And stop hating yourself, because that doesn't help. Because hating yourself would only lead to more harm than it would good. You're not inherently bad, you're not inherently evil. You're just a human being who makes mistakes sometimes. And that is okay. You're allowed to make mistakes as a man. I know the patriarchy teaches us that you're supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be like strong. You're supposed to be strong, be able to provide, protect, be there at all times, be a safe space. But you don't have to. Sometimes be unsafe. Sometimes be emotionally unavailable and take time for yourself. That's very important. Not every time, everybody. Sometimes you should be selfish. You should be selfish sometimes. And take care of yourself. And another thing that I really want men to do, or like I wish more men did, my friends and I really do this a lot, is that we hold space for each other. We hold space for each other. We're there for each other. Because I'm a big fan of like friendships between non same friendships, non same sex friendships, like men, women, non-binary. Like, I'm a big fan of like those types of friendships. But like, I also think it's very important to have male friendships that are genuine and safe and vulnerable. Because sometimes you really need to talk to someone who's being treated by society the same way. For instance, as a black man, we live in very interesting times. We live in very interesting times as black men where women are afraid of you, but then you have to question yourself before you react. You have to question, is she afraid of me because I am black, or is she afraid of me because I am a man? Now, I don't think anyone is going to understand this unique position if not a black man. Because I cannot go talk to a black woman about this, because she doesn't have that problem. I cannot go talk to a white man about this, because he doesn't have that problem. This is a problem unique to black men. And and I say a problem because it is very hard to deal with, because it's like, on the one hand, if said person is afraid of me because I am black, that's kind of sus, that has to be racist. But on the other hand, if this person is afraid of me because I'm a man, it's like, oh, is that sexist, or is it just because of how society is built? So these are like unique positions that I think especially black men need black men spaces for, black male spaces for. Because these are unique things that only apply to us. And I think we really need to like start emphasizing and start like consciously, actively, and intentionally creating spaces that are purely and solely for Black men to exist in and speak to each other. Because if we're not there for each other, who will be there for us? And even if someone else is there for us, are they truly there for us? Do they truly understand our position in society? Do they really understand what we're going through? And I think today is also like a combination of like other episodes that I've made, because a lot of things that I've said leading up to like this week, so like in previous episodes, really do, connect to how mental health issues, especially amongst Black men, are like spread. It's like things like the patriarchy, and like because we are Black men, we're expected to be hyper, quote unquote, hyper masculine and shit like that. A Black man deviates anything, any inch, any centimeter from what is considered to be the standard of masculinity, and then he's a sassy man and whatnot. So Black men, please hold spaces for other Black men, because no one else understands a Black man like a Black man. No one else understands you like someone who is like you. And I think we really need to like intentionally create more spaces for ourselves. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna end the episode here. I have a feeling I've spoken for 20 minutes, but I'm not too sure. But like, yeah, we're gonna end it here on a nice slip, not also because like my ice cream is done. Because my ice cream is done. So yeah, we're gonna end the episode here. And once again, thanks everyone for like tuning in and everything. Thank you for showing up. I hope you guys had a lovely Pride Month and a lovely Men's Health Month. And I hope everyone's doing okay. Black men, speak to other Black men, white brothers, brown brothers, everyone, every man out there. I hope you're speaking to other men as well. And before we go, let me add some songs to the playlist. So this week I'm feeling a little bit. I've been going to the gym recently, so like I'm feeling a little bit hip hoppy. So I'm gonna add Food Fungus by I know it's a weird one, but like it's a good song. I'm gonna add Food Fungus by Ski Mask, the Slump God. I'm going to add Faucet Failure by Ski Mask, the Slump God as well. And I think for the third one, I think I am going to add Garden Kisses, I believe it's called. Oh, excuse me, I am tired. I'm gonna add Garden Kisses, I think that's what it's called, let me check. But yeah, I think it's Garden Kisses by Giveon. So yeah, those are the songs for this week, guys. Make sure to add the playlist. The link is in the description, in my bio, okay, yeah. I'm gonna add Garden Kisses by Giveon. Yeah. So all of it is in the bio, in the description. Make sure to check it, and make sure to follow the socials at Back OT Class Show and at Dami_the creator on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, comment, and do everything. And once again, guys, I love every one of you, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.